Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There you go, right down there. If you want to be among the first to hear my weekly takes, NFL, college football, more, right there. All right, Chad Millman, CCO Action Network, Sharper Square, all odds provided by DraftKings. So had I bet last week, I would have gone 3-1. I had the Bills, shame on me. Everything else, I was on the right side.
Come on. No. You don't get credit for had I bet. You either did or you didn't. You know,
Well,
what does Yoda say? There is no try. There is do or do not. You didn't do anything last week. You watched some football and maybe you were right about what you were thinking.
Okay, so this week, I love the picks. I think the lines are wrong this week. First of all, we are overvaluing the Chiefs because they played a completely decimated Miami defense in minus 27 degrees with a quarterback that can't throw the ball deep. And then they play an absolutely ravaged Bills defense, missing 6 starters. So we're overvaluing who they are. Baltimore is a team that wrecked San Francisco, dominated Miami, destroyed Detroit. You know my favorite number in this business, -4. I think the Ravens roll. Mahomes is hard to blow out, but I don't think they'll have success running it with Pacheco. Here comes Marlon Humphrey back to guard Rashee Rice. I think the Ravens are one of the best playoff bets, believe it or not, at -4, Sharper Square.
So sharp that if you end up not betting it and then just thinking about betting it, you're doing yourself a disservice. It was sharp when it was -3 last Sunday. It was sharp when it was 3.5. It's still sharp at 4. The wise guys love the Ravens in this game. It is a scary, scary bet. Not because of what the Chiefs have done the past 2 weeks, and you're using the right terminology. They're overvalued based on their season-long results. But it's still Patrick Mahomes, man, and it's still Patrick Mahomes who's 9-1-1 in his career as an underdog, who's 2-0 straight up in his career as an underdog, who's 8-3 straight up in his career as an underdog. The reason why this bet is scary is because the idea of betting against Patrick Mahomes late in the game, and he is stepping up in the pocket against a really good pass rush, and you don't know where the ball is going yet because you can't see it on TV, and who's on the other end of it, you have no idea, but you're pretty sure it's going to be completed, and you're pretty sure it's going to be a long pass because someone was in single coverage and some receiver is wide open. That's the fear. So you're right. Sharps are on it. Sharps love it. Defense is dominating for Baltimore, and their rush offense will destroy the Chiefs' rush defense. And the Chiefs, by the way, missing Joe Thuney, their offensive guard, who's one of the highest rated pass blocking guards according to Pro Football Focus. In every way, the Ravens should destroy the Chiefs, except the Chiefs have a cheat code in Patrick Mahomes. So I will tell you what I've done, which is only slightly less untoward and cowardly than claiming credit for bets you didn't make. I bet the Ravens -2.5 first half.
All right.
Because I'm scared. Because I'm afraid of Patrick Mahomes. But every other wise guy is piling in on the Ravens, and I agree with you 100%.
All right. I like the Lions +7.5. So if you take, I do this with big games. I take the top 10 players and then the top 15. The Lions are stacked. I have 8-7 Lions, 8 players to 7 for the Niners. Now, if you go top 5, McCaffrey, Bosa, Trent Williams. But when you start extrapolating from the 4th best player, and it's Penei Sewell, and it's Hutchinson, and it's Amon-Ra St. Brown, and it's Jared Goff's the better quarterback, the weather's not a factor. We know this is a team that doesn't play well in windy or cold weather. Going to be 67 degrees. It's going to be dry. There's going to be no wind. Jared Goff played plenty of outdoor games in the Bay Area. He's fine. This offensive line's better. The Niners' offensive line center right is actually one of the weak spots on the team. Neither team has a great secondary. What concerns me about San Francisco, the names are bigger than the production up front defensively. Their rush has been hit and miss over the last 6, 7 weeks. Bosa, absolutely. Chase Young, meh. You're not getting the names right now. It's like a hotel chain you went to when you were a kid. You go back 10 years later and you're like, it's kind of an average hotel. The name's bigger than the property, right? You've seen that with golf courses, hotels. Um, I think right now, I can't unsee the Ravens crushing them or the Packers outplaying them. I think Detroit matches up, may not win. I think 7.5. I think the number should be closer to 6. 5.5. I'm taking the Lions sharper square.
So the wise guys have been on the Niners. It's one of the reasons why this number is moving. In fact, it's a really interesting stat. The Lions are a huge liability for the sports books this weekend,
That's
not
right.
because there's so many people on the Lions at plus 7.5. There's 44% of the money, according to our tracking, on the Lions money line. Like people are just piling on the Lions to win this game outright, more than they like the Lions to actually cover the spread. But the wise guys have been on the Niners, and there's a couple factors in play. You cannot discount how bad this Lions secondary is, right? Look at what they've given up to players like Nick Mullins, multiple 400 or near 400-yard games. Baker Mayfield more than 350, Matthew Stafford more than 350. Brock Purdy, there should be no bashing of Brock Purdy. All the guy has done in a season and a half of starting is lead his team to two different NFC title games, lead the league in passing yards, and be as effective and efficient as any quarterback Kyle Shanahan has had. And he's the reason why he is closer to winning a Super Bowl than he has ever been. This is a much better team than the Lions across the board. And there's a real big factor, I think, for the Lions. Their offensive line, Jonah Jackson isn't going to be playing in this game. When Jonah Jackson played this past week against a heavy blitz from the Buccaneers, zero pressures in any of his snaps. He goes out at the end of the game, 7 pressures in 18 snaps given up by his replacement. Jared Goff getting pressure up the middle when he cannot step up is not the same quarterback, no matter what the conditions are. So wise guys are back in the Niners here. Also, the X factor. It's Deebo Samuel. Look, when the Niners have Deebo Samuel, 12-1 this year, winning games by an average of 18 points per game. There's one game when they did not win by double digits. That was week 2 on the road at the Rams, a division game. They only won by 7. Deebo is a complete game changer. And I am checking Deebo's availability because I already bet the Niners minus 6.5. I am checking his availability nonstop. And he's still 50-50 progress, but in pain. He's a major, major factor for this game. So even without Deebo, the wise guys have been betting the Niners. With Deebo, I think you'll see this number skyrocket.
Yeah, by the way, he does get a break, played on Saturday. Now this game's
Yep.
on Sunday, so you get another 24 hours. And we know with surgery or injuries, 24 hours is a long time. I want to ask you about Jim Harbaugh. So it was funny. I was in Los Angeles. They call it the City of Angels.
I've heard that. Yes.
And Harbaugh's no angel, but it was nonstop, wall to wall coverage of Harbaugh in Los Angeles, the second biggest city in the country. And I said to somebody that I know that's close to the Chargers, I said, "You guys probably made about $6 million yesterday
Yeah.
in coverage." It led every newscast. I mean, it was the story in LA. And then the Chargers have 51,000 season tickets. If they can get to about 57.5, which they could probably sell the stadium out now with Herbert and Harbaugh, but they don't want to because as a warm weather city, they want the Denvers and Kansas Cities to come in and to be able to elevate the prices based on how hot and how big the game is. So if they get to like 57, 58,000 season tickets, that extra 6,000 plus all the publicity you get, you kind of pay for Harbaugh $20 million a year. So Harbaugh, not that he's a bargain, but this feels like 7 of the 12 losses for the Chargers were 3 or less, significantly more than the league. So this is not a rebuild like Houston. This is like a 5-win team that could win 11 and it feels totally reasonable. Where would you put the over under if you had to? If you, I thought to myself, am I nuts? It's 10. Am I nuts?
So it's funny you say that. I love the way you're thinking about the economics of this deal. It's not that dissimilar. Remember when ESPN went out and signed Troy Aikman and Joe Buck for eight-figure yearly contracts? Everyone's like, what are they doing? Meanwhile, it puts them in better with the NFL. They get better games. The ad rates go up. They sell more commercial time. The ratings go up. Those deals were paid for in one game, right? You just made the
Right.
same point with Harbaugh. It doesn't matter what they pay him, they were going to pay for it in some way, shape, or form by the publicity they were getting and the attention they were getting. And oh, by the way, it's going to be such a better product on the field. He is a game changing coach. He has been that way everywhere he has gone. What he does is drive the people that he works for crazy. And that's when he ends up, burning out his welcome. But he will have this team ready to be very competitive and be a contender in the AFC very, very quickly. When you were asking win total, my first instinct was 9. And you're saying 10. I could see it at 10 because bookmakers might feel like they can take advantage of the public and set it a little bit higher
Yeah.
because they can say, all right, Jim Harbaugh is getting so much attention. We know they're going to want to bet the over no matter what it is. So let's set it at 10 and let's see what we can sort of get in terms of some sucker money. But I would not bet against Jim Harbaugh. I love the guy. Love the guy as a coach. I think he's amazing.
So the public could do very well if Detroit wins, but the public had a very good year betting. I want to circle back to one of my
Yeah.
theories on this because I had a very good year betting, and it took me about 4 weeks to figure it out, but I was overthinking the room. And I've done this in the AFC playoffs where I'm 5-0, basically picking the best quarterback. I took Stroud over Flacco. The sharps like Flacco, and I'm taking Goff to cover against Purdy. In fact, I took Love over Purdy, and he outplayed him. Do you believe now on a macro level that I mean, you'll tweak everything you do because you're a professional gambler, but there is a dynamic now that has to be considered. The young quarterbacks that come in, if they've got 2 years starting and all those camps and the new culture, it's a cottage industry quarterback. They're better, faster, the coaching's better, and increasingly there's more offensive coaches, and that the best quarterback, it's harder than it's ever been to bet against them. Because I find myself a default. In fact, a prime example, I took Kyler Murray several times. I didn't
Yeah.
think Arizona was better. But like against Philadelphia, I'm like, well, Jalen's struggling. He may bet better than Kyler, but Kyler's healthy, rested. I'm taking Kyler. Will you tweak over the course of a season, seeing these trends, which appear to be substantial? It may only be a half point to a point, but one of the teams I didn't bet this year that a lot of people did was the Colts because I just couldn't buy into Gardner Minshew as much as I like Shane Steichen. Um, your take on sort of my rambling here about
Yeah. Yeah.
this changing. It feels like the league is slightly changing for betting.
So there's three different things that I want to pick out of that. Number one, great year for the public. Favorites were winning at an unprecedented clip. And if you're like me and you like to play underdogs and you find value in the underdogs, and when you model these things, you're playing on the idea that bookmakers are going to overvalue favorites because that's where they can expect the public to come in. So they're going to give you an advantage. This year, it didn't matter as much, right? So that's number one. Do I think that's a trend? Do I think that there's going to be regression for that? My guess is there will be a regression. There are some things that are irrefutable when it comes to betting. Regression is irrefutable, right? Number
Yeah.
one. Number two, the quarterbacks. Betting, and we've talked about this a lot this week on my podcast because the Chiefs and the Ravens are a perfect example of trying to figure out when you are betting how to ride the wave and then get off the wave before it crests. Historically, you look at Lamar Jackson, terrible as a favorite of more than 3.5 or more. Patrick Mahomes, amazing as an underdog of 3 or any number, right? So last week, We were betting on the Texans because we felt like Lamar Jackson hasn't proven it yet. We were betting on the Chiefs because we felt like we were betting against the Chiefs because we felt like at 2.5, the Bills were the right side and Patrick Mahomes' time has passed because this team isn't as good. Missed on both counts because the wave went one way and we were expecting it to go a different way with the Ravens, and the wave went one way and we were expecting it to stay the same with the Chiefs. And so this week, trying to thread that needle, are we betting on Lamar Jackson? Do we think he's over the hump on the stressful situations and choking in the playoffs? Are we betting on Patrick Mahomes because what we've seen out of him, no matter what his team has been so good so often? That is the biggest challenge. And adjusting that, it's really, really hard. And
So
this is a game where you sort of measure it.
the reason I'm taking Lamar over Mahomes, I consider Mahomes better. But as I told you circumstantially with Kyler Murray, I believe Lamar is at home with better protection and significantly better weapons. So it's not just who's better. Circumstances, weather, where's the game, what are your weapons? I think with Marlon Humphreys coming back, taking on Rashee Rice, you're
Yeah.
not going to run much on Baltimore. I think Mahomes is going to be very frustrated in this game at times. And I think Lamar, I think Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews back. I think Zay Flowers has been, I mean, just a seminal change in his career. I mean, Lamar has, he's got his, Stafford is Cooper Kupp. He's got his safety valve. He never had one. It was a tight end. So in that instance, I like Lamar because I think he'll be the better quarterback in this game. I think Goff will have better protection. And I'm betting that Debo doesn't play much so that Goff will be the better quarterback in this game. May not win, but I don't think you're getting 48 snaps from Debo. I think you're getting 18. And therefore, I like the weaponry of Amon St. Brown, Laporta, Gibbs, Montgomery. So and he'll have better protection. So in this instance, I believe I am taking, well, Goff is better than Purdy as a natural thrower. I'm taking the better quarterback circumstantially and what he's surrounded by. So that's why I'm taking my pick. So again, this is the classic. I know that Mahomes is better than Lamar. I don't think he's got great protection this year. Now, he's not getting sacked much because he's very nimble. This Baltimore front this is the best linebacking crew in football. This front seven is really athletic and really twitchy for big athletes. And I think he's going to be under some duress.
So to your point about the quarterbacks, it's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy
Yes,
because the
sure.
better quarterback is almost always on the better team. And
Yeah.
so if you want to bet on the better quarterback, they're almost always going to be on the favorite. And this year, the favorites were winning at a larger clip than they ever have before. So the real test of your theory, and this is what's interesting about betting, is you don't bet for the week. You bet for your life, right? And how did you do this year? How did you do the next year? How do you do the year after that? Does that trend continue to hold? That's why trends can be an interesting complement to anything you're doing when you're talking about betting. We're talking about what's happening on the field. That's really important. A trend is a good complement to anything you're thinking about on the field. It's not the reason you make the bet. So, will the Colin Cowherd good quarterback theory hold up next year? That's when we start to know if that's really something that is sustainable. As for the game, I think what you're saying about the Chiefs' offensive line is critical. I think the middle of the field for the Chiefs in this game against the Ravens defense is critical. The Chiefs are not an explosive offense at all. If Marlon Humphrey is back, like you say, and he is locking up Rashee Rice, which is what the expectation is, the Ravens are not the Bills who are starting AJ Klein. They are not the Dolphins who are decimated at every level of their defense. They are Patrick Queen. They are Roquan Smith defending the middle of the field who can do wonders when they're patrolling that middle of the field. And as we said before, Joe Thuney, offensive guard for the Chiefs, not going to be playing. That also will make it difficult for Patrick Mahomes to step up into the pocket. There's nothing scarier for a quarterback than not being able to step up, right? They like to roll out. They like to be able to step up against pressure that is coming in from the edges. I think that's going to be a real handicap for Patrick Mahomes in this game. So I completely agree with your theory on why you like the Ravens and why Lamar could be the better quarterback in this game. That's why the Sharps believe it too.
Well, hey, before I don't watch any streaming during the football season. And then once the football season ends, I'll commit to a few Netflix shows. I've peeled back. I have Amazon for football and Netflix for my wife. I've peeled way back on the stuff. I think these streaming services are I like sports, I like news, I like politics. It's all on TV. But give me one series, one streaming series. Now, as I segue, probably in about a week, as I move toward an occasional streaming show, do you and your wife have one I should be aware of in our
Oh my God,
audience?
Colin, we have so many. And I love how you're being frugal with the streamers. I know you're saving up. I know you got a lot of big plans and you
Hey,
just got to
I
put
got
the
to
money
buy those
away.
Southwest Airlines and Spirit Airlines tickets.
I understand. So I'm gonna give you three. Okay. Number one, if you're not watching The Bear, which is on Hulu/FX,
Okay.
then you are missing out on one of the best shows of the past 20 years. This is a show. Now, granted, I'm a Chicago guy and this is a
Yeah.
Chicago show,
It's a
but look,
culinary
this
show.
culinary show, it just swept the Emmys, right? Every single morning, I am watching a clip from The Bear on YouTube. I go onto YouTube. I want to see, hey, how did we do overnight in our clips and everything else? And before I get there, The Bear is all over my home feed. It is so brilliant, Colin. It is the only show that has ever come out where I waited long after the premiere of the second season because I knew the second I started the show, every second I was watching, it was a second closer to being over. It is a unbelievably enriching experience. Number two, listen, you have fine, fine tastes. I'm going to give you a show that was really interesting. It's called Drops of God, Apple TV. I don't know if you want to pony up for Apple TV Plus. Drops of God. Fascinating show about a guy who had the most expensive, it's fiction, the most expensive wine collection in the world, a real terrible person as a human being and a father, leaves the wine collection to his daughter and one of his proteges, but they have to answer like all these questions, almost go through like a contest to see who's going to get it. And it is dramatic. It makes you want to drink a bottle of wine every time you're sitting down to watch it. I freaking loved it. Finally, I'll tell you, season 5 of Fargo, John Hamm, Juno Temple, amazing.
Okay. My wife said Jodie Foster, True Detective, may be worth watching. Thoughts?
Haven't I would watch it. Huge Jodie Foster fan. Loved the
Same.
first season of True Detective. Haven't watched it since. The Vince Vaughn season I didn't love. And so I would pick it. I would pick it back up for sure.
You know, Vince Vaughn works out at my gym. He's much bigger in person than you'd think.
Tall guy, another Chicago guy.
He is a Chicago guy.
Yeah,
He is.
very tall guy.
Loves sports.
Gains, a lot of gains. Is he stacking weights? Do you judge it?
I don't judge. I myself am more of a repetition guy than a stack weights guy.
Mhm.
I just want to be, sort of tight, as I say. I've got a
Yeah, yeah.
beautiful wife, and I have to be at my, got to be at my best. I got to look tight. I'm not worried about being the biggest guy. I'm not going
Your
to be
wife
the
is
biggest.
beautiful. Your wife is beautiful. As we've discussed, our wives kind of look alike. My wife also has red hair. They're
Yeah.
both in the architecture and design space. Last night, I feel like you can appreciate this. Last night, I was in the kitchen and my wife asked me a question and I answered with a joke. Kind of one of two or three jokes I've said probably for the 20 something years we've been together. She looks at me with all seriousness. She goes, look, if things go well, you and I are going to be together for another 30 something years. I'm like, uh-huh. She goes, you need to get some new material. So now I'm working on it. I got to think of some new jokes for the
You
next
know,
30 years of my life. If
of the
things go,
many,
by the way, if things go well.
well, she's worth keeping.
Yeah.
My wife has an amazing quality, and I have no idea how she does it. So if somebody tells me a funny joke, I will walk up to a stranger within 5 minutes and tell them because I can't keep it to myself. I want to get a laugh. I want
Yeah.
to I want to perform and get a
Of
laugh.
course.
Can't My wife can not only keep a joke for 20 years. I've been with her 17 years, and she will deliver the line or the joke at the perfect time. And I'll go, "How long have you had that?" She goes, "Oh God, I heard that in college." I'm like, "You stored that for 16 years." And it's not just jokes. She'll have a line. And she dropped one the other day. One of the lines she dropped years and years ago. We had just gotten married. And, I'm feisty, a little irascible, feisty. And I was just in one of my moods. And I said, nobody that's balanced is happy. I said, is Peyton Manning balanced? Was Michael Jordan balanced? Passion is what makes people happy. Finding something, falling in love with it, kicking ass, those are happy people. Not the web designer, ski instructor, poet, barista. That guy's not happy. He's searching his whole life. Well, he's balanced. And she goes, honey, she touched me on the shoulder. You're balanced. You have a chip on both shoulders.
Oh, man, that is good.
And I was like, you saved that for 12 years.
Yeah.
So the other day, we were talking about the volume and the growth of it. And, I'm always interested in her opinion on it. And, I said, I'm proud of this, this, this. And she goes, honey, it's okay to look at success. Don't stare at it. And I was like, wow. And I was like, she was basically saying, stop patting yourself on the back.
Yeah. Do the next thing. One step every day, forever. What's past
literally
is past.
Floored me. I was just like,
that's amazing.
It's a great quality.
It is. I feel like, and maybe this is a trait that balances couples like you. The success of an evening for me is judged by laughs per minute from things I said. And so at the end of the night, it was a great night with another couple if the other couple laughed at a lot of the things that I said. My wife will say only the things that she thinks really matter. I'll say, I'm going for volume. She is going for a very specific, calibrated comment that everyone's going to remember. I think we married the same woman.
I marvel at it.
Yeah.
It would be like if you were a baseball pitcher and you had the best pitch and you were facing the Dodgers and you only used it twice against Mookie Betts and only in the later innings. And you'd be like, why don't you use that thing in the first inning? You're like, well, I don't want to show too much of it. I'm going to use it like twice a game. And you're like, the game was tied in the third. It was tied in the fifth. You only used it in the eighth. And you were like, well, it was a high leverage situation. I thought that's the time to use it. It'd be like, I can't do that. No. I'm not capable of saying, I've got this great gift. I'll hold off on it for 20 years.
Yeah, I'm going to wait. I need to be expressing what I believe my full potential is at all times.
I'm like,
because if I'm not, Colin, I'm not sharing my gift with the world. And what am I doing then?
I feel like the minute I get a funny joke, I'm in the Catskills and I'm Shecky Green. I've got to let it go.
And you're wasting your life if you're not doing that.
I know. All right.
All right, man.
Good stuff, buddy.
Good luck to you this weekend. Talk to you later.